adding value to people to help them heal, transform, become the greatest version of who they are. So I love your question because it's something I'm very passionate about, is being able to actually take these kind of vague, out there, tried 20 different styles of healing or different modalities to heal. I went into NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, including all the effed up, screwed up, painful things you've been through. Once the emotional charge or the resistance towards that person or circumstance or events or whatever's happened, once the emotional charge is gone through doing some form of a process, second pillar is inner work. That's essentially what we're talking about today. So transformation, trauma, limiting beliefs, emotional and energetic blocks. They're the three big pieces I focus on. To heal trauma, to remove limiting beliefs, to plan out your life, to figure out how to make money doing what you love.
Hey, welcome everyone to the Nomad CEO, where we share stories about men who have been through the ringer, who have had a transformation in their lives, and who can share a story that is not only inspirational, but also insightful. And so today I'm here with Lewis Huckstep, and he's quite a well-known figure, and he's a transformation coach, which is a perfect match for my show. And so I'm really excited to introduce Lewis here to you guys. And so, yeah, I'm really honored. So Lewis, just share with us, please, what was your biggest challenge, transformation in your life? Let's just start right there.
Awesome, mate. Thank you for having me as well. I love adding value to people to help them heal, transform, become the greatest version of who they are. So certainly a lot of alignment with what you teach. So look, I guess the biggest one for me is going through, honestly, back to childhood. I believe your purpose is an expression of your greatest core wound. So pain becomes purpose, wounds become wisdom. So my core wound for me was around mental, emotional, physical abuse, rejection, being misunderstood. So I got diagnosed when I was younger with Asperger's, autism, ADHD, and I had a lot of mental and emotional instability. There was a lot of violence, there was a lot of anger, there was a lot of yelling, there was a lot of just emotional abuse and mental abuse. So that was, for me, the seeds that were planted many years ago in my childhood. And being able to just journey through that and work through that later on, because you don't understand it back then. You're doing the best of what you have back then. And it's what would, until you integrate and heal or work through whatever is underneath the surface, it's going to keep bobbing its head up. It's like the beach ball. You push a beach ball underneath water, it bobs up somewhere else. So it just kept showing up for me in business, in relationships, in finances, in health, in friendships. And I got really into my self-growth journey about 10 years ago now. And yeah, just been working through my insecurities, my trauma, my limitations that were sabotaging me in my business, in my relationships. That would be kind of the biggest stretched out version of what my transformation's like. Being a people pleaser, being shy, being awkward, not being confident, self-doubting myself, being very emotionally volatile, being very triggered and very unstable, to being someone who now recognizes his triggers, takes action to heal and integrate them, and is able to help others and have a successful business and have a beautiful wife of mine and be able to have a life that I truly love. So that's kind of the big bird's eye view of my transformation.
Yeah, that's kind of profound. And I mean, this is something I think common among people in general, where the wound that you mentioned is in childhood, right? Often. And so we sort of run away from that, or try to not expose ourselves too much to this dragon of the past, or whatever that you want to call it, right? And so people deal with this in a different ways, and there's a lot of, I don't know, I'm a big fan of, David Hawkins. His book about letting go was for me a game changer in terms of how to deal with my insecurities and all of that. And it's also it sounds like what you described is just it's not like a one moment thing, right? This is a continuous journey of self improvement, I guess. And so you started. How did you tackle it? What was your I mean, awareness, I guess, but I mean, practically, so people can actually say, okay, because it still sounds like something out in the ether. But how do you, for guys out there who in the place where they don't know where to start, what would you recommend or suggest?
I love your question because it's something I'm very passionate about, is being able to actually take these kind of vague, out there, philosophical terms like trauma and healing and transformation and actually break it down into practical steps. So that's honestly probably like the benchmark, like the cornerstone of my in my coaching is being able to take things like purpose, things like trauma, things like wounds, things like shadows, and actually break them down into what's practical. So I really appreciate your intention behind this. So where I started was Tony Robbins. So I say Tony Robbins is the gateway drug to self-development. And I started him 10 years ago when I was 18 years old. Went to a seminar, did his fire walk. For anyone that's familiar with Tony's work, I did that event 3 times, and it just opened up Pandora's box. It just opened up like, holy shit, never heard of this stuff before, never seen this stuff before. And it was just like I discovered fire. It's just like, this is amazing. And I jumped into Wayne Dyer. I jumped into Gary Vee, into Kerwin Ray, who was a big mentor of mine in Australia, into John DeMartini, into Dr. Joe Dispenza, and just so many mentors that have completely shifted my life. And for me, I think you'll enjoy this. When it comes to healing, this is a quote that I use from Bruce Lee. He says, there's no ultimate martial art, only the ultimate martial artist who knows every martial art and knows when to pull from the right one at the right time to get the right result. And that's the same with healing or transformation work. There's no one tool or one modality that's the best compared to anything else. I do believe there are some that are more effective than others, but there's 5 bodies to heal through. There's the mental, the emotional, the somatic, which is physical, the energetic, and the spiritual bodies. So depending on where your quote trauma or wounds are, or the things that you want to work on and transform from, you need to use the right tools to address the right body or the right wound that's there. So for me, for example, I've tried 20 different styles of healing or different modalities to heal, and I've been certified in 9. So I actually see myself as on a quest to become the ultimate martial artist. So whoever comes to me, I have all the tools in my toolkit to be able to help them transform, heal, integrate, break through whatever glass ceilings showing up for them in their relationships and business. So, mate, answer your question properly. Tony Robbins is where I started. I went into NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. I went into timeline therapy. I went into hypnotherapy. I went into breath work. I went into DeMartini. He's probably the one that shifted me the most. He's probably my most transformative mentor I've ever worked with in terms of my depth of understanding of trauma and integration and healing work. I've done negative emotional release techniques, and I've done a couple others that I'm forgetting about. And I aim to do 1 to 2 new modalities or certifications each year just to add to my toolkit. So I've got more and more tools to transform and help as many people as I can.
Sounds amazing. I mean, there's a lot of depth here. Obviously, because the people are different, right? So not everyone responds to the same stimuli, I guess, or healing practices when we want to call it this like that. I'm going to share for me what's really helped, because there's also a difference, I think, when you have a trauma like you described in the past, way back, which is something you carry throughout life, or you have this moment of, rock bottom during, like in midlife, like I had, like I lost my company, the company that I had built over 13 years, my whole existence. Just 3 years ago during the pandemic, I started over from zero. And so that for me was a huge roadblock, like, and it was so what has helped me to overcome that was to focusing on the body part, and the breathing got me through. Like this Wim Hof method is something that really helped me a lot through the difficult, because when you get these anxiety attacks and then you don't know what the fuck you're gonna do with that, because it's so intense and often, then breathing technique is probably the one thing, like the one thing that can give you like immediate relief. And then on a continuous like training, like hard, my body, like doing hard like challenge. I'm doing a keto diet now, just up to 12% body fat from 21 in, so stuff like that keeps me like challenged is what what have helped for me. But other people I know, I mean, what is your take on the importance of body first, so to speak, like caring about, because a lot of people, let's be honest, they're just fucking, I mean, they're not doing 90, I don't know, 90% or 90% of men. I'm focusing a lot of men here because I feel like men have, they're sort of this success object in the world, right? So for women, success is something that they can just add on to their life, and it's great. But for men, it's like this: you get it, you have that, you're successful, or you're sort of in a bad place, right? So for at least they feel like that, and so if they don't have their shit together physically, I mean, in terms of how they treat their bodies, how they look like, how they present themselves, and all that, because the rest is just downstream confidence, and all that shit comes from being actually disciplined enough to control what's actually in your control, which is not that much.
I love all of that. So the thing that came up for me as you were talking is the two types of tools to use. So two categories of tools. One category is what you were referring to is maintenance tools. So it's what you do on a regular basis, daily, weekly, monthly, to maintain you, to maintain the vessel, to maintain your nervous system, your health, your gut, and all these things. So breath work is fantastic, grounding, getting some sun on your skin, exercise, journaling, meditating, all these things are fantastic to look after the body, look after the vessel, and maintain yourself. Because if you're like eating shit food, not exercising, scrolling on your screen the whole time, not moving your body, you shrivel up and your nervous system gets really dysregulated. So that's the first types of tools. So maintaining your body and your health and the system and the vessel is really important. And then the other types of tools for me is progress tools. So for example, this is where, again, there's no ultimate martial art or there's no tool that's better than the others. It's the right time at the right place to get the right result. So for example, say you've got some unhealed trauma. Trauma is a character trait or a behavior that was too much or not enough in your upbringing. So rejection, abandonment, abuse, control, manipulation, suppression, dismissed, list goes on. There's 4,628 character traits that humans can display. So we can have a lot of wounds and triggers to work through. So let's use abandonment or rejection because most people can relate to that at some level. So say you've got some trauma around rejection. And then so how that works is you will attract that trait into your life because you're trying to run away from it. What you run away from, you run into. So when you perceive that trait of rejection or abandonment, it triggers you into some form of a coping mechanism. It might be anxiety, it might be working harder, it might be people pleasing, might be smoking a cigarette, it might be sex, it might be some form of addiction. You'll have some coping strategies to overcompensate for it. And if you then just say you get triggered, and then you do some maintenance tool, you breathe, you meditate, you go stand on the grass, you go get some sun, you do some journaling. That's awesome. And that's going to help you get through the moment. That's going to help you maintain yourself in the moment. But here's the thing. If you don't eventually process or use a progress tool to actually reflect back, find what was triggered to start with, and actually integrate and heal that, then it's just going to trigger you again. I've got so many friends who are either into the breathwork world, and I'm a breathwork facilitator. That's one of the certs that I've done so far. So I'm into breathwork. I use it. But if you don't integrate the mental, emotional, psychological wound or trauma that's there, the perception that's there, then you're going to continue to get triggered and you're going to have to keep breathing every 2 seconds to regulate yourself. So for me, it's doing both. It's when it shows up, when you're dysregulated, when you want to look after yourself. But then, so you don't keep pushing the beach ball underwater, it just keeps bobbing its head up its whole time in your life. Take some time, get the right coach and mentor or person to work with, and integrate whatever the wound is so it stops triggering you, so you don't have to keep going and doing your breath work or your meditation or whatever it is. Still do it because you want to maintain yourself, but you don't need to as frequently. I hope that made sense. Does that make sense?
It does. I just have one follow-up question. So when you say integrate, what you mean is like replace with a more useful reaction or activity, or what do you mean by integrate?
The wound. So I'm referring to the trauma. So trauma is a trait or a behavior. Now, there's a lot of definitions of trauma that I really enjoy. Dr. Gabor Mate, he's the author of The Myth of Normal. He says, trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you. Really love that definition.
Yeah.
John Demartini, my favorite mentor, he says, anything you can't gratitude for or have love for is a lopsided perception. So anything you've been through, including all the effed up, screwed up, painful things you've been through, if you can't get to a point of genuine gratitude and love and acceptance and recognition of that, it's not healed yet. So another definition as well, self-growth and self-transformation is learning to love all parts of who you are. So whatever was traumatic for you, it becomes a part of you that you don't love. This gets really deep, so I can keep going with it, but that you want to find the triggers, which generally come from parents and partners and upbringing and whatever you've been through. You will find the specific traits and behaviors that trigger you, which once you recognize that, those are actually parts of you that you haven't learned to love yet. So when I say integration, it's learning to heal and close the loop off of the trauma, but it's also simultaneously learning to love that part of who you are.
Okay. So this is a tough one for me as well, trying to, as you speak, where I was like sort of trying to like my own analyze myself, self-analyze, and because it's true, right? So because you can't, it's really hard to embrace the actual trauma when it happens. But I can also recognize that this is true because so it took me like after I left the company, after I lost all of it, it was not wasn't about the millions of I lost and my material side of things so much. It was more the identity that I had attached to it, because I felt I was this, CEO, and then suddenly I was not, and it was like, and now after it took me about a year and a half to. It was in a corner of my mind that I didn't even want to go, right? So I was just trying to not even think about it, right? So, and then, and now what I'm discovering, since I'm now focusing on other men on founders, and because I thought I had lost that part of mine, which was this you being an entrepreneur, which I obviously did not, because I'm still one. I just had a bad, I just had a fuck up, so to speak, right? But now I see that how this story is also an asset. It becomes an asset because now the story is actually, of course, it was painful, but it's also a great story. So now it sort of becomes I'm starting to appreciate that part of me, because it's a part of me, right? It's a whole story that is actually integrated. It just need to, does not take away the pain of that moment, but it makes it an integral part of my journey, and so it's valuable, because of that, just because of that. And so I'm getting to a place where I'm now okay, right? So
Yeah,
that's
but
yeah,
everything you're saying, mate,
yeah.
is perfect. It's the pain becomes purpose, wounds become wisdom. Memories or problems or events or people, once you heal or do a process or integrate or do inner work on it, once the emotional charge or the resistance towards that person or circumstance or events or whatever's happened, once the emotional charge is gone through doing some form of a process, that's where wounds become wisdom. That's where pain becomes purpose. That's where you get to learn the lessons. Yes, you may get a bit of a scar on the way through, but that's like you repeat problems until you learn the lessons they're there to teach you. And that's why inner work for me is so important. If you run away from things, you run into things. And that's where the wounds from mum and dad and childhood keep popping up in your life. And until you really learn to integrate it properly, you just keep running into the same problems. And everything you just said, mate, is fucking beautiful. So well done for going through some challenging times and not just projecting and playing victim and just being egoic in the moment. It's like, okay, great. How did this serve me? What did I learn from this? How can I be better next time? How has this helped me grow? How has this helped me become the man I'm destined to be? Thank you, universe, for providing me with the perfect people, with the perfect circumstances for me to evolve into my greatest version of me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Once you get to gratitude, thankfulness, love, the triggers and the resistance goes away.
Yeah, this is so true. I spoke to another guy just a few days ago. I also on a recent podcast I haven't even published yet, but he said something also super interesting, which I loved. Basically, was that if you end up hitting rock bottom, well, it's a perfect situation, because now you have the solid foundation for
Yep.
growth. Right? So
Yep.
it's true, right? Because it's actually couldn't be better, because you now have a really rock solid foundation, so on where you can build something truly solid, right? So this is a good thing of a good way of looking at things. And another guy also I like his take on this whole struggle situation is his name John from Bulldog Mindset, is a guy from California, big YouTuber, and he said that, well, actually the struggles, it's never gonna be over, right? So you're always gonna have these. Life is just that. If you don't have a pain right now, you should look out and go for some pain, because it's not gonna end ever. So it's just that if you choose which which pain you choose, right? This is the only option you have. It's just choosing it the way. So in that way, if embracing the pain, whatever pain that is, it's also a more positive way to look at things, right?
Life has no meaning except the meaning we assign to it. So you need to break down to break through. You pain, purpose, wounds, wisdom. It's everything you say, mate. So it's just been out. Obviously, I also do my best to allow space for people to be a human. We are humans with human emotions, human perceptions, human senses. So it's like how can you go through something so traumatic, painful, devastating? Like, what's the difference between how long it takes you to get back to neutral, back to balance, back to love, back to thankfulness to move on? It's like, depending how much work you've done, the more work you do, the quicker you'll be able to do that. You get to a point where you can say thank you in that moment. And that's not always easy. I'm not perfect either, but that's the goal, right?
Yeah, nobody's perfect at this. And what you just said here with how much time you're gonna spend in that hole. this is something that Joe Dispenza talks about a lot too. I've heard him saying that a lot. Like when you reprogram your mind, because that guy is really truly inspiring too, right? With the whole story he has.
Big fan.
Yeah, yeah, me too. And the only thing I really had a hard time with his teachings is that at the beginning, I don't know if he still teaches like these 45-minute meditations. They're pretty long. I mean, that's where you have to sit through this. It's hard to do on a. I don't know. I did this for a while, but it got. I do meditate. I'm a meditator, but sometimes I just don't do the whole 45 minutes. It's just too long. But yeah. Question to go deeper on that. So, what do you think, Iman, in your experience with the people you have helped and you have coached and you have shown a direction that to aspire to? What are the biggest, let's say, the 5 biggest issues, problems that they face usually when they want to get out of their problems?
Perfect question. So my book is called The Inspired Life Method, and that's like the big pillar of my teaching. So there's 3 big pillars. Number 1 is you don't know who you are, and I'll zoom in on each of these in a moment. Self-mastery, knowing who you are authentically. What's your soul's purpose? What's your soul's values? What's your authentic mission and vision? Because if you're not doing that, you're trying to be number 2 of someone else. That's where you feel lost, you feel unfulfilled, you have no meaning, your life's not happy, you might achieve things externally but feel empty internally. That was me for a long time. So that's the first pillar. Second pillar is inner work. That's essentially what we're talking about today. So transformation, trauma, limiting beliefs, emotional and energetic blocks. They're the 3 big pieces I focus on. And then the third piece is skills and strategies. And I joke with when people ask, how do you describe yourself? I say I'm Joe Dispenza, DeMartini, and Alex Samozi put together. So I'm into healing, into purpose, into transformation, into energetic, spiritual woo-woo stuff. But I'm also very practical where it's like, okay, maybe you're not making enough money because you're doing the wrong fucking thing. Maybe you don't have the right skills. Maybe you don't have a plan. Maybe you're not doing the volume that you need to do. Like you're not, I joke at my events, I'll say there's a spectrum of humans. On one side of the spectrum, we've got our spiritual humans. Now these people meditate, levitate, sage, crystal, breathe, do plant medicines every 2 seconds. These people are often very fulfilled, but very broke, because they're not taking action. On the other side of the spectrum, you've got your hustlers, which is like the people that just hustle porn. I'll outwork you. I'll look at my achievements, look how successful I am. And that used to be me for a long period of my life. I was 22 and I owned 3 gyms, and I was just like, achieve. I will prove my worth to the world. That's the hustlers. I believe in integrating the 2, because the hustlers are generally achieving externally, but they're unfulfilled internally. So for me, why not have both? Why not know your true self, your soul's values? By the way, soul's values are not things like honesty, loyalty, integrity, control. These are behaviors and character traits that you have preferences over. Soul's values are areas of life that fulfill you. It's unique to the individual. So what fulfills you? Who's your true self? What's your life's purpose? That gives you direction, meaning, and fulfillment. Get clear on the vision and mission that you want to create for your life, because then you can break it down into a plan later on. And then address the inner work. So it's whatever beliefs you have are limiting you, find them, get rid of them. Find the trauma, which is your triggers. Triggers reveal the trauma. Find what they are, integrate them, heal them so they stop popping up. And then learn, like through Joe Dispenza, learn how to change your emotional and mental home, where he says, thoughts are the language of the mind and emotions are the language of the body. So how do you change your personality to change your personal reality? You do that through changing your thoughts, changing your perceptions, which is what limiting beliefs and trauma or perceptions are, and then learn how to change your emotional home. So you can, quote, vibrate at a higher emotional frequency, depending how woo-woo you want to go with it, where you're radiating love and abundance and success and joy, and instead of like resentment and shame and guilt and all those things. And then put it together into a nice plan. So it's like, okay, let's actually practically have a plan of what I'm doing, have the high leverage outcomes to put into my plan, and then go take action. So that's kind of my teachings in a nutshell. If I had to put top 5, it'd probably be purpose and values would be there. They don't know who they are. They're trying to be someone that they're not. I'd probably say limiting beliefs and trauma would be number 2, and 3 and 4. And number 5 would be the skills. They're just actually not doing the right thing, or the skills are off. They don't know what they're doing. Tony Robbins, he says, you're running east looking for a sunset. It doesn't matter how fucking motivated you are, how consistent you are, how focused and determined you are, you're doing the wrong fucking thing. So that's where get the right skills so you can take the right action.
Yeah, yeah. I love how you said the emotional home. Implicitly, it makes you understand that this is actually somewhere you retreat to. Like this is where you go when in your default position, so to speak, and it makes it clear that this is a choice too, right? So you can choose you can just move to another home.
Yeah. But
Um,
just to zoom in on that, it's a choice once you're aware of it. So this is where like everyone's doing the best of what they have with their conditioning, with their childhood, with their parents, with their biology, with their epigenetics, with everything they have, they're doing the best of what they have. And it's with great power comes great responsibility. Once you become aware, like I've got people and if anyone wants like some good triggered content, go watch my content on Instagram and read the comments. There's people that say this is bullshit, you can't heal, this is bullshit, la 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 la. And I sometimes react and give them some like feedback. Hey, look, blah, 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 blah. I can help you. Here's some testimonials. Here's some proof. But those people, they generally don't believe that they don't know it's possible. So people like you just said, change your emotional home. Some people are like, oh, I didn't even realize you could. Well, you can. Now that you have awareness, then once you have awareness, then it's on to you. Everyone's doing the best of what they have. And once you are, I love this quote from Peter Crone. He says, you can't be held accountable to something you're not aware of. So once you are aware of your triggers, your wounds, limitations, blocks, and you're given the toolkits to do something with it, then when you choose not to, you're choosing to stay the same. Whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. So it's like I start with love and empathy because they're doing the best what they have. They don't know what they're doing. Then I'll bless them with some awareness and the tools to do the work. Then if they choose not to, they're choosing to stay where they are.
yes, yeah, because most people are slaves to their emotions and they're not even aware that there's something they could do about it, right? Yeah, but another thing I think I wanted to add, or the balance part, I do agree with that because you can have like because again, I'm gonna just use my own story here because it's the only experience I have. So I have my business going on, right? So this was a nanotech company, and I was making the money that I needed. And then I had my passion side, which is this like the spiritual side that I developed for myself about photography. And I had a gallery in Mexico. And so when my other company, when the shit hit the fan and everything just imploded, then I also lost my gallery because for me, photography was like this spiritual escape. It was never about money. It was always about just going out into nature, meditating. I wrote a book called photography as meditation. And so when that all happened, then I tried to monetize my photography, but that completely failed. I was completely unaware. I couldn't really do it. And so what I'm trying to say here is the point I'm trying to make now is that you can be as spiritual as you want and work on your inner thing, but if you're not able to hone the skills you need to actually create an offer other people want, then it just doesn't make any sense. It's just completely useless because nobody was interested in buying prints from myself. It's not something people necessarily want, right? So and then and I had to find out the hard way. And yeah, if you look at my Instagram, I had insane engagement with when I was doing photography. And then the pandemic hit, and then I completely got inactive. Could never recover from that on that side, and so now I'm rebuilding on another platform. But yeah, it's just something that I think I wanted to add to this because I think like it makes it. You can do inner work and you can do a lot of work, but you have to before you go out and try to leverage like these social media platforms. You should actually have an offer to the world that is valuable. I think, yeah.
Man, I love what you're saying. You and me seem very aligned with our beliefs. It's like yes, work on yourself, work on your emotional home, heal your stuff, integrate your stuff, maintain yourself, look after yourself. But then again, it's also about being practical. I joke again with my clients. I say, you can't pay your landlord with gratitude. You got to use fucking money. So until we get to a point where you can just energetically give them some gratitude to pay your rent, which maybe at some other dimension, maybe, I live in the real world where I have bills to pay. I have things that I want to do and achieve, and I want a lifestyle and a life that I want to create for my family. So it's like, hey, I can meditate and manifest and do all these things, which I'm into, without bridging that gap with, okay, let's be practical about this. Let's be strategic about this. Let's put the systems, the processes, the plan, and the accountability in place. Then it's like people crossing their fingers, watching The Secret, hoping that a Lamborghini rocks up in their driveway. It doesn't really work like that. So, mate, I love what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a balance, I guess, and I think it has never been. I would argue that it has never been easier to create value in this world for other people since you have everything at your disposal to you just. I think the people just underestimate the power of the internet, I guess. I mean, a lot of people obviously also jump on that train, but what it comes down to is like what is value for, right? How do you create value that's people actually want to buy from you? And especially if you go into the entrepreneurial space and if you go out in the content creation space, so how does that look like, right? So So it's a journey, definitely not easy, I guess, but also like there's things going on that are opportunities that, for example, like you could argue. I thought, for example, when the AI thing came out, then everybody said, okay, now writers are gonna die out, or not gonna be there anymore. And the opposite is true. It's actually the opposite. So still, ghostwriting has never been as lucrative or important, because everybody needs a story, right? Everybody needs to communicate, and it's all text based at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if you create a video or I don't know, a script for a book. You need the text, right? And so yeah, and the person behind is, so people just need these authentic connections, I guess. It's also a very important aspect. Okay. Well, Lewis, it's amazing. I actually want to join your your course now. For all the listeners out there who also interested in getting in touch with you, how should they do that? How can they reach out to you?
Firstly, thank you for your time, man. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I see a lot of alignment with you and me, which is really cool. Thank you for that. First book, probably a good way you can start with me. It's called The Inspired Life Method. It's on Amazon, Kindle, Audible. I have a community where it's a school community for anyone that follows Alex Mosey. So I've got a school community, and I give you all of my tools and resources to find your purpose, to heal trauma, to remove limiting beliefs, to plan out your life, to figure out how to make money doing what you love. I give you the 4 pathways. I show you which vehicle to select. I teach you how to build a conscious relationship, how to set boundaries, how to improve intimacy in sex, how to understand attachment styles. Like, it gets really deep. So there's a ton of content in there. There's a free 7-day trial, and you get a one-on-one call with me when you join. So go grab that. It'll be on my Instagram somewhere. Go find my social media. You'll be able to find it somewhere. Mate, it's been an awesome conversation. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on my show. I'm really honored. And I'll put the link in my newsletter that's gonna go out. And yeah, hope best of luck to you, man.
Thank you, brother. Likewise.
Thank you. Goodbye. All right, man. This was really